it going, guys? Can you hear me on here? Hey, Steve, is my audio working on here? Using a new my new laptop, so plus side is it actually can stream, so that's a plus. It's going Bronk. Jake, how's it going? Good video, by the way, Jake. Watched that earlier. It's hit on a lot of good points with hygiene. I mean, a lot of people underestimate how important that is in the woods. Yeah, if you're out there by yourself, it might not matter, but you're out there with a buddy or a couple people. You know, last thing you want to smell is someone else's funk or your own funk after a couple of days. Scott, how's it going? Craig, what's going on, man? So I have a USB mic that I could plug in here, but I wanted to run this one with just the standard mic that's in this new laptop I got. So I just actually bought a gaming laptop for editing videos and then live streaming and stuff like that. And I'll tell you what, it's well worth the $1,500 that I paid for it. I'm extremely happy with it so far. How's it going, Patrick? You creeping on me? How's that Gransford Brucks treating you? Kicking off Fire Prevention Week. Nice, man. How's it going, Kentucky Prepper? Something I wanted to mention before we hop in. So in about, let me look at the calendar because I'm not sure. So in about 2.5 weeks is me and Tony running class in Indianapolis. I'm sure you've seen my post on my social media about that. So if you're interested in doing a class with us, we'll be doing that a couple weeks here. And then let me pull my calendar back up here. And then in about 4.5 weeks, me, Jake, and Tony will be running a class. So if y'all are interested in those classes, hit me up, hit one of us up, and we can definitely get you the information. Bang Bang Bushcraft, how's it going? So I don't really have like a particular topic I wanted to hit on this week. Just kind of get on, shoot the shit. If you have questions, fire away. As my phone's going off now. So one thing I've been actually like looking into this past week is finding some new insulation for hunting. So in the middle of November is gun season here in Wisconsin. So I'm sick of freezing my ass off when I'm sitting in a stand. So I'm actually looking at ordering a couple of different pieces of insulation because I've tried a lot of different things. Merino wool, different insulating layers, and so far it's kind of been hit or miss. I think this year I'm actually going to go with some bibs. Just that way, I was watching some videos, and a guy that hunts in this particular part of the country where it gets cold as hell, you know, come November, made a good point with bibs is once you have a jacket over it, even if you have a jacket and pants on, you can still catch a draft through those. So I think I'm going to go with bibs this year and hopefully combat that because I've always had issues with staying warm once I'm sitting in my deer stand. DeVoe, how's it going, man? All the way from Nova Scotia. What time is it there, by the way? I know the Eastern time zone, so I'm not sure if that Nova Scotia falls in that same time zone or not. Okay, so you're about 2 hours ahead of us. Yeah, I might look at some of the LL Bean stuff. I know you've been rocking that for quite a while, Jake. Sitka, I might order some Sitka. I don't know. I'll see if I can work out a deal there. texting me here. All right. No one too important. Yeah, man, that time zone stuff really jacks me up sometimes. So, like, traveling back and forth to Ohio a bunch, once you hit, I think it's about Remington, Indiana, you start bouncing in between the Eastern and the Central time zone for a couple of miles. Crazy fact of so north of where I'm at now, about 4 hours or so, is Marquette, Michigan. And what's crazy is even though it's almost directly north of me, they're actually in the Eastern time zone. I remember I went up there this spring and that kind of jacked me up. And I was like, what the hell? Why am I? It was just 4 o'clock and now it's 5 o'clock. Where'd that hour go? Gonna do some weather work tomorrow night. Nice, man. That's one thing I've always thought about getting into. I just never did, is doing some leather work. Just never picked up the skill for that. Never actually just put the time and effort into it. Jake actually just did a pretty good live. I think it was last night, talking about a pretty good book series, and I think I'm gonna pick up one of those. Uncle Tom, noon in Australia already. You're a couple time zones ahead of us here. That's really messed up. So I'm trying to think of what I've been going through this week and studying on my own. Started actually reading Woodcraft by was it E.H. Krebs again? Yeah, that's crazy. It's Newfoundland's got a little bit different time zone than you. Yeah, I started going through those older books again. So I'm gonna read that Woodcraft by Krebs. Gonna go back and read Woodcamp and Craft, Woodcraft by Nesmith, Horace Kephart, and all those. Start going through all those books again and kind of refresh on them. Gonna start knocking out some more land nav. I don't know how many books about land nav I have. At least 10 to 20, if not more. One of the things outside of collecting packs and a lot of gears, I collect a lot of books. Can't tell you how much money I've spent on books in the last couple of years. Probably too much, but worst case scenarios, I always have knowledge on hand if things were to turn. Finally got 59 here tonight. Boat here, and it was 50s here today. I think tonight's supposed to drop down close to the 30s. So, like this time of year, like with doing overnighters for the channel, it's always hard in the summer just because, number one, since I'm shooting in 4K with my camera, that when it's like usually about mid 80s and higher, my camera will heat up really, really fast because filming in 4K puts a lot of demand on your camera. So I have to spend a lot of time. I could shoot probably for a good half hour, maybe 45 minutes, and then I have to like remove my lens and just let my camera cool down. Last thing I want to do is run my camera and then basically just fry it from getting it too warm. And on the flip side, wintertime, your batteries drain like instantly. Typically one battery for my camera, I can get at least an hour, maybe a little bit longer. In the wintertime, that's probably cut down to like half hour to 45 minutes per battery. And I have, I think, 6 or 7 batteries. So that's always the challenge with shooting some overnighters is, the technology part is going to be the biggest struggle. Not to mention it's summertime. I don't like camping when it's humid as hell out. And here in Wisconsin, there's like a million lakes here. So when it's 80s out, it's so humid. It's just miserable. So it's not even a good time. But that's just kind of why there. So fall into like springtime are like my favorite times to get out and camp. But I'm going to try and get some stuff out for this winter. Yeah, Patrick, you're not too far away from me. You're a couple hours, 4 or 5 hours from me. That's some kind of canvas bibs with good cargo pockets. Yeah, man. So the ones I've been looking at are from a company called Beyond Clothing. They're based out of Seattle. Um, Kind of ticked off at myself because they had one sort of insulating pants that are like super packable and light, and they were on like an outlet for like $60 and normally like 200. And I missed out on buying a pair of that Coyote, and then the only color that's left now is red, and I don't really want to be rocking no red pants. Just from a personal look standpoint, nothing wrong if you want red pants, just not my vibe. How's it going, Kyle? High 30s, low 40s here in Ohio. Prepared Irishman, how's it going, my man? What reading right now, Kyle. I'm reading two books outside of the ones I'm reading for school. I'm reading Shut Up and Rock, and the other one is Woodcraft by E.H. Krebs. You can find both of those on Amazon pretty easily. The Shut Up and Ruck is about Special Forces assessment and selection. I talked about this last weekend or on last week's live stream. I've always been fascinated by reading about training pipelines, whether that's for special operations, just the military in general, understanding different training methodologies, because then you can kind of pick up little things and tidbits. And I actually use it a lot to kind of like formulate my own training. So like right now I'm trying to get back in the running and then rucking and then lifting regularly again. So I just kind of use that as a good way to get some motivation. And then the Woodcraft by E.H. Krebs is just a good refresher to, see how they did things 100 years ago. Try to get back in that mindset of what they were looking at things, and then kind of extrapolating that for what we do in modern day. Prepared Irishman, what camera are you running with? So I use a Sony ZV-E10. I think when I bought it cost me about $700, $750. But what's really nice with it is that it's pretty good with shooting 4K video, but I can also shoot photography with it. And then I have, how many lenses? I think I have like 4 lenses for it now. Some for really close, the regular kit lens that just comes with it. And then I have 2 zoom lens. So one that does like up to 100 feet, and then one that does up to like 300 feet. So I can really shoot close enough. Like wildlife photography is something I want to venture more into, because I'm pretty good at doing landscape photography, dabble with a little bit of product photography, stuff during classes. Obviously, I've done for a really long time. So if you are a content creator or looking at getting to content creating, that's a really good beginning camera. If you're looking to jump up from like your phone, for a long time, I filmed everything on my phone. And don't underestimate what you can do with your smartphone. For a long time, that's all I used for photography. And I had people messaging me constantly asking me what kind of camera setup I was using, what kind of lenses, stuff like that. And for a long time, I was just using my phone. A bigger thing with photography, if you're going to start doing it, is use your smartphone, because you always have it. So you can constantly just take pictures. And that's honestly the key to getting good with photography, is taking tons of pictures. Over the last 3.5 years, from when I first became an instructor and so forth and so on, just from class pictures alone, I think I'm in the neighborhood of 15,000 to 20,000 photos. So that's really helped accelerate my growth as a photographer, and like catching things and just having the eye for it. So like if you want to get good with photography, it takes loads of pictures. I can't tell you how many pictures I take. Probably 75 to 80% of the pictures I take don't quite turn out how I want, but those last 20% is usually those ones that I post or that I'm using in different things. Let's see what else we got going on here. Camera batteries suck. Yeah. The nice thing with the Sonys, though, especially that Sony ZV-E10, is if you have a battery brick, you can plug that directly into the USB port and charge your battery. Like going forward, I'm going to try and set up my camera to shoot these live streams. And what's nice once you connect that cable is it'll actually run off the power system of the laptop and not the battery in itself. So if you're out in the field and you have like an Anker or any other brand, you can plug that directly in there and that'll expand the life. So that's a nice little trick to have with that camera. And you can do the same thing with your smartphone. How's it going, South Dakota Mountain Man? Yeah, do me a favor, hit that thumbs up, get a little boost going on. What's your strategy for dealing with mosquitoes? So my go-to has always been treating my clothes with permethrin and then using picaridin. Yeah, it's made by Sawyer. It has a blue label on it. I use the lotion personally, just because I find it a little bit easier to apply it how I want versus just like spraying a bunch of bug spray on me and get my mouth and on my glasses and stuff. So I get a little bit more control on where I can apply it. I usually just focus like right around my ears, back of my neck, along my collar of my shirt, on my waist, and then obviously from like just above my sleeve all the way down my arms. Typically, and that's worked really, really well for me. It's worked with ticks as well, although Jake has done it and he still gets ate up. But I think that's his problem. New York weather fluctuates daily. Yeah, I've only been to New York for when I took the winter class with Sean and Josh back in, that was January 2019, and it was freezing. Like, I've grown up in cold, but that was cold, man. That was brutal. Definitely green or brown colors for me. Yep. Let's see. So for the most part, Devo, I've used mostly free weights. I incorporate a lot of body weight movements, kettlebells, and then free weights, whether that's bench or squats or deadlifts. My gym used to have a sled where I could load weight up in it and push it back and forth. And that's, I mean, you want to gas yourself out, go with that. And I've actually would start with my workouts with that after I got on the treadmill for a little bit and just did an incline walk for like 5 minutes or so. Hit that, that sled push and pull. So basically I push it down however long and then pull it back, and then do that for a couple of rounds. That'll get your entire body warmed up, not to mention build like overall conditioning, strength, everything all in one go. Yeah, Kyle, those are both good books. I think I'm about halfway through the Shut Up and Ruck, and I'm about 20 pages back into the Woodcraft one. Long Island. Let's see. Starting my own school here. Did a library class, 10-14. That's awesome, man. I'm a big believer in the more people that you can get out there teaching wilderness survival, it's only improves, because especially with the economic climate we find our country in right now, basically being in a recession, it's hard for some people to get out to classes, even if the price for the class is pretty low. A lot of hidden fees are incorporated in classes. So I think on average for every class that I've taken, and I've taken, let's see, I think about 6 or 7 classes, on average about $1,000, paying for the class and then travel to the class. If I had to ballpark, it's probably about $7,000, and that doesn't even include the gear that I had to buy. So probably all in, once you talk about food and everything else, you're probably looking in the neighborhood for that many courses, probably about 10 grand. And I've mentioned this in a previous live stream that, through my training pipeline, my training just wasn't given to me. I paid for my training. There's a big misconception. People saying, "Oh, you got all this training and then you left." That is not the case. I paid for all the training. I paid for all the gear. I paid for everything there, and racked up a pretty hefty credit card bill that I'm still paying off to this day. So it's not like you like any other job where you showed up, they paid you to get trained and then you started working. It's basically you paid to get the training, and then if you make the the cut, or they want to bring you on, then they bring you on. But back to South Dakota Mountain Man, starting his own school, teach a couple classes if you got the skills and the knowledge and the experience. Not only are you going to help those people, plant that seed for that interest to get outdoors, but you're also going to help to refine your own skill set, because honestly, you're going to learn more as an instructor than you ever did as a student. I know Jake can say that for sure. I can say that for sure. I talked about it last week about how I learned what kind of instructor I wanted to be, especially for Matt Mercer. I wanted to be more of a coach and not a drill sergeant and grinding into the ground, because that honestly, I was reading something recently in the past week about creating a positive learning environment versus a negative learning environment. And anytime you kind of get that negative environment going on, I'm sure plenty of you have struggled with something. And then if you're getting that habit of, getting beaten down or getting talked down to, anything like that, people tend to just shut off. I know for me, if someone's trying to, act like they're smarter than me, or that I'm not comprehending what they're trying to tell me, that'll shut me off right away. I'm just like, yeah, I'm not listening to you, because obviously you don't know how to talk to people and get down to that person's level. Let's see here. Bend phone only. Yeah, man, just get good, shooting on your phone. You can shoot plenty of videos on your phone. You can shoot plenty of photography on your phone, especially with phones nowadays. They got really, really good cameras on them. My phone, I don't think I can shoot quite 4K, but I know a lot of the iPhones. I believe the new, what the hell are they on now? The S22 or the S23, that can shoot 4K. I mean, soon they're going to be moving to 5K and 8K and all these other crazy ones. So, get on there and just start getting after it and start refining and learning the whole process. What is your favorite pieces of gear you've been recently using in the woods? I'm trying to think what. So I did a video earlier this week, the 5 camp or the 5 axe skills video. So Beavercraft just sent me that little camp hatchet, and that's a nice little tool to mess around with. Still not 100% sure how I feel on it. I think I'm going to have to touch up the blade a little bit. It splits, but if you watch that video, it didn't necessarily do feather sticks of grace, and that could have been the wood that I was using. That was a dead locust, so it's going to be a little bit harder. That wood was kind of, crap to begin with, and even when I used my knife on it, it didn't really work the greatest either. So that's been good. For about a year, maybe even longer, I've been using my Kifaru Shape Charge, which I think this week I'm going to shoot a video on that. Anytime you buy anything from Kifaru, it's going to cost you. It's all USA made products down to the stitching. So you're paying for that. They're not a huge company. They're definitely not small, but that's by far my favorite pack to use. Headlamp, I've been using Peaks equipment headlamp. And the main reason I got that is it can run at 800 or 1,000 lumens for 6 to 8 hours off of 18650. So that was the big draw for me. I was like, man, if that can put out that much kind of power for that time period, I mean, that's pretty impressive. But I'm constantly using new stuff. I actually just placed an order yesterday for some stuff off Temu. Temu gets, reviews are all over the map on that. But I wanted to get some stuff off of there. Number one, to see what kind of quality it is. But number two, to see if I could actually put together a whole gear list off of there. So I think I've got pretty close to getting everything that I would want for a class off of there, or as much as I could find. So once that comes in, I'm going to shoot a video, post that up, and that'll be interesting because, like I said, I've seen mixed results on Temu, so we'll see. Yeah, Craig, that class was in just outside of Lake George. at like a scout camp. It was the off season. Obviously, it was the middle of January. I think the high during that class was like 15 degrees, and it got down easily down to the single digits, if not lower. And I have never been so cold in my goddamn life. It was miserable. I got nerve damage in my toes. By far the hardest class I've ever taken, and I've taken the advanced class twice. So if that gives you any kind of indication of how tough that class was, it was rough. Days were like at least 16 to 18 hours and nav heavy. That's honestly where I learned nav and how I got so good with it. Is Josh Enyart taught me map and compass there, and ever since then, it's just been ingrained in my brain. Probably because of how difficult that class was. That's a thing when you go through really, really challenging circumstances. The things that you learn and experience during those circumstances tend to stick with you for probably a lifetime. So I know ever since moving forward, it's just always stuck with me. No, way south and east. Let's see. Mountain Man, which pack do you got? Because I can definitely run through a video on how to adjust a pack. Because I do that. Hell, I don't even know how many times a week at REI, doing pack fits, and it can definitely take a little bit to get it down. But I could definitely run through that. Let's see. Hey man, you got to start somewhere. $200 is it's better than nothing. So we all paid for it all right. That's for damn sure. Yeah, man, that's the thing. Mountain Man is even when you've been teaching for 30 years, you're still going to learn something. A quote I've always told people when I was teaching classes and talking to them was, you can learn something from everyone you meet, and the other one to the flip side of like if someone was interested in becoming an instructor is you can teach anyone anything, but not everyone can teach someone something. So that kind of contradicts the first one I said, because we can all learn something from someone. Like I've learned tons from students I've had, and I obviously have more experience than them out in the woods, but there's small little changes that they do for things, little, different sayings that they might say something. I know for like one, for instance, like what stuck with me with like the bow, not the bow drill, a bowling knot is, I had a female student and she called it the ring and kiss knot. And I was like, I never thought of it that way. And ever since then, it just kind of stuck with me when you tie it. And so you're constantly learning things. And I think that's, the main thing with not only being an instructor, but a student of whatever you want to perfect. And you're never going to know everything. You're always going to learn something new. Even if you've been doing it forever, you still don't know everything, no matter how you want to spin it. Well, worth it. I met you a couple years ago, Sean. It was a great experience. Hell yeah, man. I got a great vibe from you at last year. I appreciate that, man. I remember meeting you. Those classes were kind of thrown together, and I just did the best I could with what I was giving. That's a lot of times you find with people that get into instructing, and that's not just saying like survival, but martial arts or you name the career field, is they start developing an ego, and the ego gets bigger than everything else. And if you've ever met me in person or through my videos, you can obviously tell that I'm a pretty humble guy. I don't have an out of control ego. Everyone has an ego to some degree, but I try to keep that in check and realize I don't know it all. And I've had students ask me something, and I'm like, I don't know, but let's find out together. I do that all the time with people, even at REI. There's people that teach me things with outdoor stuff. Obviously, I can teach a lot more when it comes to camping and survival and everything. So, just realize that you don't know everything, but you can always learn something new. Wool versus synthetic clothing. what is your options? Honestly, so there's always been a huge debate with wool versus synthetic, and people say, "Oh, synthetic's going to get you killed." And so I tested this last winter quite a bit, and both of them kept me warm. The thing with wool is once it gets wet, it's going to stay wet for a significant amount of period of time. Where synthetic, by the inherent nature of it being a man-made product, it's usually made from some sort of plastic or some petroleum product, so it's not going to hold on to that moisture as long, so it's going to dry significantly faster. um, that's why in the last year or so I started switching to a lot more synthetic materials. It's just if it gets wet too, what do they say with wool? It retains 70% of its insulation value. With synthetic, even when it's wet, it still retains its insulation value. But regardless, if either of them are wet, you're still going to be cold. So, I mean, that's kind of a moot point to me. Actually, this winter, I'm going to be using a wool synthetic blend base layer from Outdoor Research. I picked it up last winter and I just never got around to using it. For me personally, I can't wear merino wool bottoms, so leggings, boxers, because my legs are too big and I end up shredding them. No matter the brand, I've shredded Smart Wool, I've shredded minus 33. The one that I didn't was a cheaper brand. Problem with that one is it's kind of itchy feeling. It's not too bad at some, but it wasn't the greatest. So I've switched to using a synthetic bottoms, or at least put on my synthetic boxers and then put my wool over those. Let's see. I'm weak on nav. Mountain Man, you're not the only one. Out of anything that I've ever taught students outside of maybe bow drill, nav is so hard for people to pick up. And I think a lot of times too, it comes down to how the instructor is presenting it to you. If they're overloading you with a ton of information, your brain is going to shut off because it's going to basically hit an overload, and you're like, what the hell is he even talking about at this point? The thing that I've always done with teaching is I broke it down to basically where I could teach a child it, they can comprehend it, and then they could go do it. And I've taught plenty of children how to nav. And if you break it down to really, really simple terms, people pick it up so much easier. I think out of, hell, I don't know, hundreds of students I've had, I don't think I've ever had a student fail land nav. They've always hit at least a 75+%, rate of passing. And that's like getting the amount of points. So I think moving forward for yourself, Sean's videos are really, really good at breaking down nav. There's lots of good videos online. I'm kind of a book junkie, so I've bought just about every land nav book I could possibly find. So that's kind of like moving forward. That's something honestly, I'm going to specialize more in land nav, and obviously still teach survival skills. But land nav is by far my favorite thing to teach. So moving forward, when I start teaching more classes, land nav classes are probably going to be a lot more prevalent of what I teach. Ever use Eberly stock packs? Yeah, so I've used, how many have I used? I think I've used like 3, maybe 4. They're really, really good packs, man. Those things, you can load those up with a crazy amount of weight, and they've posted videos of it. The one that I've had that I've actually sold since then was the Fact Track, and it was designed for forward air controllers. And that pack is set up really, really simply. It's got 2 front pouches, 2 side pouches, and then the whole front zips open. I'm actually a huge fan of that clamshell design, like that suitcase design. It just allows you to get to everything a lot easier versus, like the Alice style pack where you just dump everything inside and then now you got to take everything out to get it. Which I still like the Alice pack. But I much more prefer having that clamshell where I can just open everything up and get to what I need. I've also over time broken all of my gear down into little kits. So that makes life significantly easier. So I know if I pull this bag out, it has all my electronic stuff. Pull this bag out, it's got all my miscellaneous survival stuff, ferro rod, fire starters, extra lighter, yada, and so forth. And then I've actually moved to not using compression bags for my sleeping bags anymore. What I ended up buying is a Sea to Summit evac bag. I bought a 35 liter and I just use that as a pack liner because the bottom of it allows air to be pushed out. So when you put your bag in there, I put my sleeping pad on top of that. Anything else that I want to keep dry, start closing it up, and I just push all the air out. And it's doing two things for you. Obviously, keeping everything dry, but as you push out that air, you compress that bag down, it's taking up all that bottom space on the bottom of your pack. So you're not having, a basketball for a sleeping bag, and then you have a big elongated sleeping pad, and you start stacking all those oddly shaped things in your pack. Then your pack just gets wonky. It gets hard to be comfortable. Or if you put that bag in there, stack everything inside, push out the air, you're taking up all that space in there. No space is wasted, and then you can just continue to stack on top of it. Kyle, I soak up a lot of outdoor knowledge and love learning skills from your videos, bud. I appreciate that, man. I always try and give a little bit different spins on things. Obviously, try to get out some, basic knowledge. And that's what a lot of my videos have been more geared toward in the last year. So it's just really, really basic stuff that you can learn everywhere online. But then as we're moving forward, I want to start branching out into other things. I was camping all out. I mean, I think the basics I get, but the jazz and gathering with all the tools other people. Yeah, man, there's so many different tools when it comes to land nav. One of the big things I've always told people, and I've really learned this more so after I did a private one-on-one class with a student, is land nav is more of a confidence game than it is the actual skill. Like, obviously the skill is extremely important, but if you don't have the confidence or you lack the confidence in that skill and like trusting that tool, you're going to bomb it every time. Once you can understand that confidence and really, hey, trusting what I'm doing, it just clicks and then you're off and running. Yeah, man, that little flex tail pump is a game changer. I've used that at least a year and a half now, I want to say, maybe even longer. They're coming out with a newer one that's a little bit smaller, and I already pre-ordered that on Kickstarter. So looking forward to that one coming out. But if you're not familiar with that, it's just a little pump that's probably, this big or so, maybe 2-3 inches big. But you can attach it to, it gives you like 6 different attachments, plug it into your sleeping bag, or not sleeping bag, your sleeping pad, pillow, anything that you want to blow up, turn it on, and then it inflates it in a minute or two. I've moved towards using a pump to pump up those things versus blowing into them. Maybe a couple of times if you go out a year, not a big deal. But if you're going out consistently and adding a lot of moisture in there, you can get mold back build up in there, which if you get that inside your pad, good luck getting that out easily. But secondly, if you're winter camping, the last thing you want to do is introduce moisture inside your sleeping pad. If you've ever slept outside and you're sleeping on your sleeping pad, you've bound to woken up and your pad is like feeling like it's lost some air. I've seen tons of returns at REI because they're like, oh, this pad lost air overnight. A lot of times it's not that your pad is losing air. It's as that air on the inside cools down, the molecules shrink. So it feels like you're losing air. It's just losing volume from the molecules themselves. So if you add moisture in there, not only is it shrinking, making that feel like you're losing air, but if it's cold outside, basically it's going to start, may or may not freeze on the inside, but essentially it's going to cool down significantly more, thus making you colder throughout the night and kind of defeating the purpose of having a sleeping pad. Let's see what else I got. Have I got lately? Mainly been looking at stuff for hunting since it's coming up, and I don't want to freeze when I'm out in my deer stand, just because it turns into an ice box. I've actually looked at possibly getting Primus. I think Primus does. They sell a little lamp that you can screw on the top of a butane canister. So not only is it generating a little bit of light, but it also puts off some heat. The downside is if that touches anything, it's either going to burn it or melt it. So if you go with that route, just be careful with that. Other than that, man, I just been trying to plan out some videos. Like I said, I ordered all that stuff off Temu. See how that stuff turns out. I'm trying to think of if I've ordered anything else in the last week. Let's see. Let's look here. Ordered a couple packs. I'm actually looking at ordering a South African Defense Force Pattern 83 rucksack. The problem is just finding one that's not outrageously priced, since it is a surplus style pack. Finding one in the United States not the easiest, but I came across it in the last couple of days, and it's got like a traditional look to it, but it's made out of nylon. So I might track down one of those and try and get one of those and do a video on them. Let's see here. Ordered a tent off Temu, which if you don't follow him, the Outdoor Gear Review, he puts out really, really great videos. I followed him pretty much since he started, over 10 years ago. He actually did a video on that tent that I just ordered. So it looks like an interesting tent. So for $50, I mean, it looks like a pretty solid tent. Yeah. Other than that, that's all the stuff I think I've got in the pipeline. Got some videos from companies that have sent me stuff, like a drone. So I want to start incorporating that in some videos. Have some power stations I got to do videos on. So start cranking those out a little bit more here. First light clothes are the best for hunting. Yeah, I've definitely looked at buying some First Light because one of the guys I hunt with every year, he's buying a bunch of it, and it's like got no bulk to it. He stays warm all day long. Granted, his stand isn't facing in the direction my stand is, and my stand like notoriously is like in the direction where the wind's coming from every single year. So I just get constant cold air blowing inside, which is a pain in the ass. But what you gonna do? Yeah, these two orders I just placed off Temu with the first I've ever ordered off of there. So I'm curious to see how like quality some of this stuff is. I ordered like ferro rod, and I just tried finding everything I would want for like a basic survival course. So I ordered all that. So it should be here, I think, this week. Gave me like the projection of, I think, by the 14th. So 14th, 16th, I think it said, if I remember correctly. So hopefully I get it sooner. So when I'm out on this week, I can shoot that video, but we'll see once that gets in how well that is. I know a lot of people are hesitant from ordering from Temu, which is understandable. You're ordering from, a questionable source, but I've ordered off Alibaba and I've never had an issue. There's a lot of companies out there that are just using Alibaba to get products, slap a logo on it, and then sell it, which is, hey, do your thing, make your money. But a lot of times you can find a lot of products that are being charged for more than what Alibaba has them for. Yeah, man, so like I can deal with like the cold, but once you add that wind in there, man, it's just miserable. Like, 'cause there's nothing you can do about it. I'm not gonna seal off my deer stand and not see anything. But this year I was actually able to score a doe tag for the county that I hunt in. Last couple of years I've always registered a little bit late because I've been too busy. So hopefully I get one this year. Let's see. Can't remember if there's any questions that have been shot on my on any of my videos. Let's see. So one I got, which I don't know if I'll do a video on, but someone asked me my thoughts on hatchets versus tomahawks versus knife. Honestly, I've never used a tomahawk. I've held a couple, but I've never used it for any kind of processing. Um, from my understanding, it's not the greatest thing to be processing any kind of wood. And a lot of times, too, I think this notion that you have to use an axe for processing firewood is a bit silly, because I can tell you I've done plenty of overnighters where I found enough dead wood that I didn't have to split anything out. Now, obviously, if it's soaking wet outside, it's a whole different story. Um, but typically, most people aren't going out when it's a torrential downpour. Um, so, I mean, I think a lot of time people get into, this what if, scenarios of, oh, what if the wood is soaking wet? Well, if the wood's soaking wet, I'm sure I can split down enough smaller stuff with my knife, or start a fire with enough smaller stuff that if I put bigger stuff, it'll eventually dry out and go that route. So I think a lot of times people get too off in the weeds with things, and make things more than they really need. Yeah, man, just shoot me a message. I'll try to help you out as best I can through that. Yeah, man, I like never carry an axe. I typically, if I'm carrying an axe, it's because like I'm intentionally either doing it in a video or shooting photos with it. A lot of times I don't mess around with an axe, just because number one, the safety issue when it comes to using an axe. There's such a high risk of injury, even by accident. So just be prepared for that. I default to a saw most of the time if I need to process anything. I've used a thrown tomahawk before. I wasn't great for it, which my ancestors would probably look negatively down on me. Yeah, man, that forest tool is a nice piece of kit. Might have to track down a Jeff White forest tool myself. What's your favorite knife? For the one knife to use in the woods, for me, it's 4 knives. So before I had my custom one made and then the one Tony made for me, those two are like by far my favorite knives to use right now. Before that, I was using the Ontario Tac 2 quite a bit. And that was my favorite knife since I bought that a year and a half ago at Smoky Mountain Knife Works when I was down in the Smokies. I used that a ton. Before then, I used a Garberg, a BPS Savage. I've tried a lot of different knives. The Garberg is a good knife. I just never fell in love with it. Basically, I bought it to use it as my training knife and just absolutely beat the hell out of it and see how it did over that the course of all my training. I did a video on that, and if you look at it, man, the thing is, you can tell that it's been thoroughly used. And that was my intention with buying that Garberg, was to see how much punishment I can put through it, hitting rocks off it, everything. Don't you diss my Garberg now. Hey, if you like to rock it, run with it. But I found over time with my more knife use that I've gotten into that I much more prefer a flat grind versus a Scandi grind. Convex is pretty good as well. I can use all three of them just as fine. But for me, when I use a flat grind, it just feels a lot more natural for me, and that I'm not trying to work the knife. It just feels like the knife is working with me, if that makes sense. I always tell people, try as many knife grinds as you can, because you'll find which one you like. I know Tony, he likes convex. I'm not sure what Jake likes. I want to say Scandi, but I could be mistaken on that. A lot of times too, like with my Garberg, after honing it and keeping it sharp, it eventually turned basically into a convex grind. just because it was like my training knife. So I was learning how to, you know, keep a knife sharp by hand and everything. So um, yeah, I basically beat the hell out of that knife. I also like my PKS GB2 Puko. I do really want to pick up one of Josh's Hobo Forge Pukos, but they're a little bit of coin, so maybe down the road. Only more I have so far is the companion and the budget 511. I mean, Moras are really good starting knives. If I was ever starting off someone, I would always give them some sort of Mora. I know my brother who's in the army now. I gave him a Bushcraft Black to get started, and he really likes that. Super sharp knives. I mean, it's hard to beat a nice Mora. Scandi all the way for me, unless it's the Force tool. The Convex is sweet. Yeah, the Convex. I mean, it's a nice grind. Scandi all the way, Convex. Yeah, so like the BPS Savage, my Karasu that I had custom made by fucking I always forget his handle on Instagram. I think it's Backyard Knives. That he made for me basically to my specs, and then the Dirtbound Savage that Tony made me. Those are all. I don't think the Savage is the Dirtbound Savage is a flat grind. I think that one's a convex, but all my flat grind knives are the ones I usually grab. But I like to rotate things. If you ever follow my Instagram page or my social media, see I'm constantly using different stuff all the time. So I'm a big believer in just trying new stuff all the time, and I just enjoy that. I nerd out on some of the gear. So yeah, man, that for $40, that BPS Savage is hard to beat. The one downside is how easy that blade can start to develop some surface rust, and that's just the quality of high carbon steel that they use. But you can easily, remedy that with putting it in vinegar, putting some patina on there. I live up in the Maine woods. I can't go in the woods without my axe. It's thick. I haven't been up to Maine, but I can only imagine how thick it is up there. Like for me here in Wisconsin, I have a lot of pine, a lot of cedar. Birch is all over the place. Obviously oaks and maples, but hardly ever if I'm splitting down oaks and maples that I find. I'm just tossing them on the fire, and as they burn, I just put them back in there. Yeah, I have a couple. I think I have at least one other BPS knife. I gave one away. In a little package I sold to someone for a Boy Scout. I threw one of the BPS knives in there. But the one I have kind of has like that chrome plating on there. And I've been meaning to learn how to remove that just because for me, it's not something I want out of my knife. Kind of defeats the purpose of having that utility of a knife. Let's see. What else we hit on tonight? Mindset's always a fun thing to talk about. I always see a lot of things online, people talking about, this mindset or that mindset, or, keeping it traditional or keeping it modern, or, biggest thing is find out what works for you and run with it. I know there's some people that love doing everything in the primitive way. And if that trips your trigger, run with it. For me personally, when it comes to survival skills, I like more modern stuff. And kind of where that stems from is like my game plan is always to go backpack hunting. So if I'm out there to accomplish that goal of, taking some sort of animal back, I'm not going to sit out there and try to do everything primitively. Chances are, if I get in a hairy situation, I'm going to have my kit with me. I'm not going to lose everything. hell, if worst case scenario, I can put some sort of small kit together that just sits in my cargo pant. So, and then, your mindset, with training and going for your goals is all over the map. I've taken a lot of psychology, mainly to kind of like dissect my brain so I can like become more efficient with myself. But just understand like how you thrive as a person, work to your strengths, um, and then obviously continue to work on your weaknesses. But your strengths are what's going to allow you to flourish and become successful in whatever you're doing. I actually took some personality tests for a couple assignments in the last few weeks. It was crazy how accurate some of those were. I know the first one I took was the Jung type personality test, and that thing was like spot on for my personality. I was like, that's crazy. Have you ever used the Helicontext Matilda pack? Um, so I've never personally used the Matilda. I've handled one. I've seen my buddy Andrew Heath used one for a while. It's a good pack. It's just it doesn't have structure. So if you can get comfortable with like how structureless it is, it's really really like floppy when it's not filled, or if it's like half filled. I would say that's the one downside with that pack. Um, the one, and I wish I would have bought it at the time, was like a special one-off run of them that were in like a 500D Cordura, and not like the typical. I think they use like a 210 or a lower grade Cordura. Um, but there's a lot of good packs out there. Mystery Ranch is a really, really good company to buy packs from. Really durable. They aren't the cheapest depending on the ones you get. Kafaru, if you really want to, shell out some coin because they're not cheap packs. Good packs that don't really break the bank are Kelties, and specifically their military ones, like the Red Wing 50 is a good pack. I think I sold mine to no, I don't think I sold that one to Jake. I sold one of my Kelties to Jake. But the Kelty Red Wing, if you can find the tactical version, is a really solid pack for the money. The map 3400, I think it's called. But Kelty's good. Trying to think of what other brands that aren't too expensive that are pretty good. I mean, the pack is so when I'm outfitting someone at REI, I usually tell them the 3 areas you really should anticipate to drop a pretty good amount of coin is your footwear, your pack, and your sleep system, because all 3 of those are going to impact you the most when you're on the trail. 1 day, 2 days, you can get away with some cheaper stuff, but you start going out there for multi-days, week long or longer, cheap stuff, it may work, but chances are you're going to have some struggles. So I guess kind of the biggest thing would to figure out what's going to be the length of time that you're going to be out there, and then kind of that'll help dictate how big of a pack you're going to want to go with. I usually tell people if you're like upgrading to a pack for the first time, go with something that's probably in like that 50 to 65 liter range, because you can always cinch it down. If you go with like a 30 or 35 liter pack, you can't necessarily add more space to it without it being cumbersome and just a real pain in the ass to deal with on trail. And with like a 50 to 65, more so like the 65, that gives you the versatility to use it year round, depending on the amount of insulation you bring with you if you're out in the wintertime. So I guess we'd figure out that part of it, figure out the kind of budget you want to go with. I tell people, hey, hit up eBay, look at Facebook Market if you're on Facebook, Craigslist. I mean, look at all those places every once in a while. You can stumble across some really, really good packs for dirt cheap. I just actually bought a Mystery Ranch Urban, I think it's the 21 for $45 from a lady here in town. And that pack brand new is like $150. So search around on the secondhand market. There's Facebook groups that sell stuff. Geartrade.com is a good site. You can get some stuff pretty cheap off of there. Rock Slide is another good forum that I go on to pick up stuff every once in a while. So Mystery Ranch, Kafaru, some Kelty packs, Hill People Gear is another good brand. They're all more expensive, but they're gonna last a lifetime for you. And all those companies back up their products really, really well. But for the most part, that's most of what I got for tonight. If y'all have any more questions, we can stay on for a couple more minutes. I was racking my brain all week for a topic for this week, and I just couldn't come up with one. So I was like, well, we'll just hop on here and just kind of wing it. But if y'all ever have ideas, feel free to shoot me a message, shoot me a recommendation, and then we can always run with that. That's one thing I've always tried to incorporate with my channel is responding to what you all want to see, because obviously I want you to be engaged with the content that I'm putting out, putting out stuff that I'm interested in, but also want to incorporate the stuff that you're interested in. So that helps people, be more invested in what you're doing. Public land store. Yeah, I'm not familiar with the public land store. Like REI, so obviously at REI, being an REI employee, I've before I started there, I didn't understand it completely. But after working there for 3 years now, if you have an REI close to you, it's really, really good to get in there and get fitted for a pack. Depending on the store, you might even be able to get fitted for like a Mystery Ranch. My store doesn't sell them very often, but the cool thing with REI is if you buy the membership, $30, you're a lifetime member, so you pay it once, and a lot of times there's specials going on, so you either get like a $30 gift card back or some sort of instant kind of reward. Anything you buy, regular price, get 10% of it back, yada, yada, yada. But you get 1 year for returns, even if you use it. Obviously, people will abuse that, but it's a good way to get a pack, especially like a Mystery Ranch. That you shell out a ton of money for it. But if you have that 1 year satisfaction guarantee, you can get out in the field for, a trip or two to make sure that it works for you. And if it doesn't, you can always return it and switch into something else. So it's really, really good benefit there. How about eating raw meat from Fresh Kill? Yeah, I don't know if I'll ever be doing that. I mean, I'd have to be in a real pinch to be, gnawing on some meat from a Fresh Kill. But we might be able to talk about that in a live stream here down the road. Okay, I have to check that out because I've never heard of the public land store. Write that down so I don't forget. Yeah, man, REI is nice, especially if you can hit the resupply. I've bought 2 Mystery Ranch packs from the resupply there for less than $200. So depending on the store you go to, and if you get lucky at the right time, you can walk out with a killer deal. It's great chatting with you, Mountain Man. See you next weekend if you hop on the live stream. One of these weekends, 2 Sundays from now, I probably won't have a live stream just because I'm going to be out of town. And then that following Sunday I'll be back from Indianapolis, so I might have to run this a little bit later. But we'll see. We'll see how things go in the next couple of weekends. But it's great chatting with you guys tonight. Do me a favor, hit that like, share, subscribe. As always, I appreciate all the views, all the support, everything. That means the world for me since, a small channel, and I try to get out and get the content out for you as much as possible. But I'll see you guys next weekend for another Sunday Night Live, and just get out there, get after it, make some progress towards your goals, and I will see you all next weekend.